Hey, y'all. This is Dr. Carr, the culture docent here to help you navigate and curate the experiences you want to have. Welcome back, y'all. Hopefully, you've been able to connect with folks. Based on our last episode, we're trying to help each other navigate that collective heaviness many of us have been feeling. So make sure that you're, finding your pack. Like I said, make sure that you're connecting and staying together. If you want to connect with us, you can always reach out on kmob1003.com. You can find the Culture Docent site there. You can connect with us where, of course, wherever you're listening to us right now. And connect with me on LinkedIn or on IG. I am at Carbonated Sunshine, CARRBONATED Sunshine. Connect with me there. I will be happy to be part of your pack and talk through all of the things that we've been feeling. So today we're going to be talking about being intentionally curious and what does that mean and how you can do it. So if you've been listening long enough or have ever heard me speak really or have followed me anywhere, you know that I'm a lifelong learner. I am very inquisitive. I'm very curious about all the things. That could be formalized education, that could be just going down Wikipedia rabbit holes. I'm one of those people that, like, if I'm watching a movie, I need to also read everything about the characters if it's based off of a true story. I just want to know all the things, right? And I want everybody else to get really curious like that if you're not, because it's really important in how we navigate our world. Many of you have actually heard the saying, curiosity killed the cat, right? And so that's often applied to people that are investigating things, are looking around stuff, basically not minding their business. And that saying is really used to, like, let you know something bad could happen if you don't mind your business, right? So stop being curious in that way. But what, you know, people forget, or what they maybe even intentionally lead out or maybe don't realize, right, that there's another part of that saying. So the full saying is curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. So again, people are using this as that warning, but that second half to me provides just like a different context, a different perspective, a different way of looking at curiosity. Um, you know, you want to be able to look at things, you want to be able to investigate things. Maybe a little bit if it's not your business, but that's more of a personal context. We're going to be talking about an organizational culture context, of course. So applying this idea of being intentionally curious. And so you could try to learn everything, right? Because this is where the intentional part is going to come in. You could try to learn everything and become a jack of all trades. But that's also another idiom where people do not say the other part. It's jack of all trades, master of none. And I do want to caveat, y'all know I love a caveat. I want to caveat this by saying there is nothing wrong with learning just to be learning. I personally subscribe to the thought that humans are not put on we were not brought on this earth to just like work. We were here to like be whimsy and think about life and just contemplate life and ask questions, not be a cog in the capitalist machine. So learning, just thinking about life, learning all it is that you can without really having a destination or a reason why you're learning, is there's nothing wrong with that. Just want to put that out there. But if we are talking about in an organizational context, if we're talking about advancing the culture and saying your career or what have you, then you need to be intentionally curious. Your learning has to have some sense of purpose, and some direction that it's going in, right? But again, in just regular time, yes, please just learn just to learn, read things just to read them, watch videos just to watch them, and educate yourself. So, intentional curiosity, though, this is going to be learning with a goal in mind, right? We're going to have some goals. So, how do you get intentionally curious? How do you stay intentionally curious? How do we add that intentional around our curiosity? Y'all know I love to number things. So, we got 3 things here for you today. So, number 1, choose areas of thought, topics, whatever you subjects, whatever you want to call them. They need to be things that you have an actual interest in. So I want us to collectively detach ourselves from this idea that, you need to get a certain degree or certification automatically gonna make us more money. That was that was a lie that millennials were sold. And I don't think that it was a lie. Like, that's a little harsh. It was not a lie. It was the world that for the parents of millennials and even some zennials or Gen Xers, I'm not a big fan of generations, but for the sake of conversation. Let's just use that kind of categorization. So for these group of generations, our parents, the adults in our lives, right? Like that is what the world that's kind of the world that they knew, and that's the world that they were trying to shape us for. And so it was very common to say, you can go to college, you're going to graduate high school, you're going to go to college, you're going to get a degree, and then you're going to get into this role where you're going to work in for 20, 30 years. And because you have this degree, that you are now going to make a significant amount of more money and your peers that don't have a degree. There is a correlation, right, between having degree and not having degree or some sort of, post high school education. So that could be trade school, what have you, right? But that was the world that they had been living in, and that was the world that they primed us for. But the world has since changed. And so during that time, a lot of people were pushed into the degrees or programs that, our parents, the people that raised us, right, they felt would be the most lucrative because nobody wants their kids to just be out here, suffering because they're not making enough money, right? So we can skip, or we're not going to dive super deep into the ideological things around capitalism and all that good stuff because that is way too nuanced for of a conversation for the 30 minutes that we have. But it was this idea that, if you go get a STEM degree, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. More recently, people have been trying to add that A in there for arts to call it STEAM, but that's not necessarily picking up steam. But it's right, a little joke there. But it's this idea that if you get this STEM degree, you go out and, if you're become an engineer, you're going to make a lot of money and that's going to lead to your happiness. And again, that's just going to be how you quantify happiness. But for me, that kind of push into those areas, that is the opposite of intentional curiosity, right? Like it's, or maybe not super opposite because it kind of depends on what your end goal is, but you're not being intentionally curious if you are pushed into a certain pathway that you do not like. That's the gonna be the key part. It's something that you do not like. And there were so many people that were pushed into these degrees, into these fields, and now they're working in them. They hate it. They hate it. They like the money. They may like the lifestyle that it provides for them when they're able to enjoy it. But some of these careers are super demanding and they don't necessarily have time for the things that may spark joy, right? And for me personally, I feel like that push was very uncomfortable, not just because I didn't go that path necessarily, but to me it was just kind of lacking the well-rounded thought and perspective that we need in order to be able to do those roles successfully, right? To be able to do those jobs. Like there are parts of it, being in STEM or being in a certain field that are going to allow you to better understand and to do that job really, really well. That I think that not I think I know, right? That there was a lot of divestment in some of the other areas that would have made those made those careers more robust in the long term. And now we're kind of we're seeing the effects of that today. So, example of this, right? Like if you are, you're working in cybersecurity or cyber threats, you can't really understand the psychology behind why bad actors want to infiltrate like large data systems without having someone that understands psychology and understands the human mind. You can't understand the socio-political climate that would allow for state sanctioned cyber attacks without understanding sociology and political science and history, right? Some of those liberal arts sides. Or even today, right? Everybody's talking about AI. And if you're really wanting to push AI into every aspect of your daily life, then you need to understand why ethics are important, why true natural language processing will likely never be achievable. I won't say never, but it is highly unlikely. And it's because there isn't, if there's not a person that understands English and linguistics, and again that sociology, you're never going to be able to push those things as far as you want to get them. And again, that's just kind of an aside, but we have to be able to understand all of those extra kind of liberal arts kind of spaces in order to be able to get further in those more technological spaces. But that brings us back to our today, right? And all of these people that are in these roles and they kind of hate them. But instead of saying like, okay, I'm going to try something else, what's happening is that they're investing more time, more energy, more of their self in getting advanced degrees or taking more trainings or taking more or trying to get more certifications in these fields that they actually hate. They do not like. Stop doing that. If you are one of those people that's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm gonna go get my agile cert and or I'm gonna get a PMP," and you're in a job that you don't like, stop it. Stop it. My life philosophy is that we only get this one. We only get this one, and so you need to spend as much time as you possibly can doing the things that energize you, chase your happy, right? I know that feels very woo-woo and like that's not realistic or it's detached from reality. No, no, no. I'm not saying that. If you gotta do the thing that you hate for now because it pays the bills or it keeps you in the lifestyle that you're accustomed to and it fuels the monies or the funds or the time, the flexibility that you can't, that gives you the ability to go after the things that make you happy and that energize you, do that. I'm not saying quit your job because you hate it. I personally am going to try to put myself in a position to do things that energize me and bring me joy. And I want all of y'all to do the same thing. And you can do that by getting very intentionally curious. If you do not like the work that you're doing, you need to think about what can you possibly be doing that will change that, right? So getting this intentionally curious about what interests you, detaching the thoughts of like, okay, this isn't going to bring me money. It doesn't matter if it's going to bring you money. We have had whole episodes about walking in your purpose, marrying passion and legacy, stepping out of your comfort zone. All of these ideas are thinking about being curious. We want you to get really, really curious. Okay. So set all that stuff aside about, I don't know if this is going to make me money. We're not talking about that right now. What we are only focused on in this first step is just thinking about the things that actually interest you. Stop worrying about the things that are going to do something down the line. This is just the first step. Just get curious. Read all the things, explore all the things, go places, learn, just get really really curious about things that interest you. And then in number two, we can figure out your why, right? So now that you've gotten really curious and you're starting to explore the areas that you actually like, and you're like, okay, this is really fun. I love this. You can name your why. This is when we get down to the intentionality behind the intention. Name your why. It could be to make more money, but only if you actually like doing it. That better be your reason. Otherwise, please start the episode over and internalize, right, that we need to be intentionally curious about things that actually interest us. So, if your why is, it could be to be a recognized expert in your field. When I decided that I was going to pursue a doctorate like a crazy person, I wanted to be a credentialed expert. That's what I wanted to be known as. I wanted to not only, like, I was already an expert, I always had the expertise, right? But I wanted to be a credentialed expert. I wanted to, for folks in my field to recognize and know me for these areas that I studied, to know that, okay, I put in the work. And so when I come into a room, I know what I'm talking about based on the years experience that I have, based on the credentials that I bring, right? That was my why. Also, I wanted to be called Dr. Carr. Not even joking. That was on those late nights where I was like, why am I doing this? I would call myself Dr. Carr, or I would like imagine people calling me Dr. Carr. And that was also my why that pushed me forward. So whatever is your why, that's for you. It's no one else's why. It's for you. It could be setting an example for your children or kids in your life, mentees, people that you teach, right? It could be that a course is going to give you a better understanding of the fundamentals in your field or an aspect of work that you need to do. So, for instance, if you take that course on Excel, then you can stop lying and saying that you're an intermediate expert user of Excel, right? I kid, but right, it's figuring out what it is that's your why, but you have to figure that out. So, number one, we're going to start thinking about the things that are really of interest to us. And then number two, we are going to figure out our why, right? And we're always going to keep that why in the forefront. Always, 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 always. All right. Number three, do your research. This bears repeating because I really want to reinforce that y'all need to do your research. Okay. So This is not just about the type of program or path or the industry or the level, right? Like this is going to be all of those things, the time commitment. You have to choose the right level of rigor for whatever it is that you're pursuing that makes sense for your journey. If you are, some courses are going to be more advanced, some are going to be more rudimentary, right? Like I was just talking about that Excel class. The Excel class at the library is amazing and it's going to teach you the fundamentals, but it's not a degree, right? And maybe you don't need a degree, right? You have to figure out what's the thing that are going to be that makes sense for your journey. Do you need a bachelor's degree or a few courses, like maybe auditing a few courses or taking courses, just two or three in a specific area? Is that going to suffice, right? To increase your understanding for whatever it is your why is. Will you need an MBA, right? Or do you just need an executive certification? What is going to make the most sense for what you're trying to achieve? This is going to be really, really important. Like truly important. This is not according to you. This is not according to, okay, Dr. Carr said, like I'm talking to myself. Dr. Carr says that, I think that only a couple courses are fine. But what does the industry standard say for what you're trying to achieve? If they say you need a degree or if they say you need a full on certification, that's what you should be following. It's not just because I said it. It's not because I personally think that, okay, I can watch a couple TikTok videos or read a couple articles on Wikipedia or even go to Google Scholar and now I'm this expert on it. That's not how that works. Maybe it's enough for you to be conversational, right? And to speak about it, but you're not an expert, and that's okay. Maybe you don't need to be an expert, but you have to realize what are the industry standards. It's not just according to you, what is actually needed. And that's why you need to do your research because there may be licensures that you need, there may be certifications that you need that the industry requires, and you are going to have to figure out if it is appropriate for you, if it's right for you at this time to invest the time to invest the money. Are you going to have time to be able to do the coursework, right? Are you going to have time to go into the classes? Are you going to have time to do all the hours that are needed to complete it? Are you going to be able to find the clients, right? If you are getting a degree or if you're getting your cosmetology license, right? Like you have to have a certain number of hours of real client time. The same with coaching. You have to actually speak with real clients before you even get the license. So it's up to you to figure out, what to do the research to figure out what those things are. YouTube University is amazing, but it is not a degree, right? So the free courses on Google and Coursera, they are awesome. Highly recommend, right? If you are like, what, I'm more interested in agile training, I am interested in potentially getting my project management professional, a PMP, right? My certification. I am interested and learning some more about AI because I think I know what I'm talking about, but I really want to know how LLMs work, right? So doing those entry level courses are awesome. And they do have some pathways for you to continue to advance. But is that going to be sufficient? Is that going to be enough to set you apart on your resume if you say that you took this course and now you're submitting your resume with people that have been working in this field for 10 plus years and have several degrees, right? Like so you have to weigh that for yourself. You have to do the research. You have to figure out what makes the most sense for you. And just keep in mind, right? Like the free courses have the best marketing because they're free. Right? They want you to take them, but is it going to be enough for what you're trying to achieve? The most expensive courses, honestly, they might not be the best. They're just living off of the prestige of whatever institution offers them. You have to weigh what makes the most sense. Is it the free course? Is it the most expensive course? Is it the middle of the road course that actually gives you everything that you need? But there's one that's $2,000, there's one that's $5,000. You have to figure out what makes the most sense. Do your research because what I don't want y'all to do is to come back and you're $5,000 short because you didn't take the time to figure out if that program was accredited, if it actually gave you all the course hours that you're going to need to complete whatever program it is, right? So again, make sure that you are, you know, choosing things that are of interest to you, figuring out your why, and then doing your research. That is how we are all going to stay intentionally curious. That is how we are going to ensure that satisfaction brings us back and that curiosity has not killed this cat. I love an idiom, y'all. Okay. So we have actually reached our carte blanche. And today I have a listener question. So just a reminder to all of y'all that you can send questions. Same way I said that y'all can connect with me. You can send your questions in. You can DM them to me. This is how this one came to me. You can DM them to me. You can put it in the comments. I am happy to answer the questions there as well as on our episodes. So, question is, I feel like my brand identity isn't really aligned with how I see myself. For example, I thought I was known for my work in our communications department, but everyone knows me as Netta from HR. How do I change that? I thought this was a good question just because I feel like it's really common. We've talked about brand identity before. That's where this came from. But also thinking about this intentionally curious and figuring out our why, right? I feel like it was kind of in alignment. So my suggestion is going to be that you take control of your narrative. This is your brand, so you have to be the one to shape it. There are always going to be people who know you as Netta from HR because that's the context that they have, that's the experience that they have with you. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's people that are always going to know me, from my times when I was a clerk in the court. That's okay. I've moved beyond that, but that doesn't mean that I don't, still leverage some of those skills, that I still don't have relationships with those people. That's fine. It's is not a part of my current brand identity. And that is what we're trying to shift. So it's up to me to shift that narrative. And that means that maybe I'm not talking about that work, right? Maybe I'm not putting that on my resume. Where you can start kind of shaping and shifting into this specifically in this communications role is by intentionally taking on projects or opportunities to do more communications. Maybe it's taking a course, right? Maybe it so that you can freshen up some of your skills. Maybe it's reading a few books on comms, reading articles so you can stay up to date on what are the new trends, right? There is a lot going on with AI and communications, both internal and external communications. If that is an area where you are like, I want to be known as a communications person, that's a great place to start is to brushing up on what is the actual trending topics in that area. And then to follow on to that, to get people to recognize it, start writing articles about on LinkedIn, start posting about it, start posting in your, making a blog, making a vlog, talking about it. Maybe you start a podcast and that's all you talk about is comms related things so that people start to associate you with communications. Even at work, ask if there is a training that you could lead about the things that you've learned on these new training talks that you feel would be really helpful and aid in everyone else's understanding. Maybe you can, if you really got the time, you got the money, right? And you're really trying to invest, get a certification or an additional certification. I don't presume to say that you don't have one, or maybe a degree in communications, right? So all of that to say, if your goal is to start associating your name with communications and making that link for people, you have to start moving as if you are already in communications. That doesn't mean that you completely abandon all of the HR knowledge or context that you have. Use them. Start talking to people that know you from an HR capacity and start linking in that communications aspect because that is how people are going to start saying like, "Oh, Netta, I thought she did HR. See, she's doing a lot of comm stuff." Right now, but that's up to you to start shifting it. They're not going to automatically assume that you're a comms person until you start acting like a comms person and connecting your names with all things communications. So, Netta, I hope that was really helpful for you. If not, again, feel free to DM me and we could talk about it a little bit more. I hope that question was insightful for all of you. Please, 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 please feel free to submit them. I love answering those types of questions. But that is all that we have for today. I'm very excited about our upcoming episodes, about some of the upcoming changes that we have for the Culture Docent podcast for all of you. So please, what do they say? Watch this space, right? If you are interested in learning more about that, please continue to listen. We have some great things coming up next month from KMOB 1003 around heart health because February is Heart Health Month. So again, continue to come back, continue to check us out. We have so many things. Make sure you're checking out the global collection on KMOB1003.com. And that is all for today. We will see you Tuesday for more empowering conversations that lead to empowered experiences. Thanks, y'all. Bye.